I invite you to get into a comfortable position for the spoken word for the next 10, 15 minutes. You can hear some of what I did on sabbatical. I, it's really not possible to explain what has happened to me in the last 5 months any more than you can explain what has happened to you or happened to this fellowship. We both have changed. Not drastically, but I'd like to think that our time apart has made us more grounded, more stable, and more sustainable for our future together. Separation of time and space can be very uncomfortable, but it can also be healing and renewing. As I return to being your minister again, please be patient. I've been away a long time, and if I don't respond to your call, your text, or your email right away, give me time. We're going to be together for a long time to come, so be patient. Taking sabbatical during a pandemic is very odd. Of course, everything is odd during COVID, but a sabbatical now, it's kind of like having an around-the-world ticket, all expenses paid, all luxurious accommodations, but the whole trip just got canceled. We're starting year 3 of the pandemic, and I urge you to think of it in that manner. Don't look backwards and think that you've lost 2 years and dream of going back to what was. I urge you to say and think we are starting year number 3 and to look forward to what will unfold in the coming months. Look for opportunities in the obstacles. At the beginning, the pandemic had great impact on my sabbatical intent. You see, a minister's sabbatical intent has this almost mystical, ethereal air to it. In the past, some of my colleagues would write a book, would hike the Camino de Santiago in Spain, check into a Zen monastery for a long silent retreat, travel to exotic places to help children, baby elephants, or work with the urban unhoused. Or some would read dozens of inspiring, theologically complex books. The intent hangs like an expectation. And during these exotic experiences, a minister on sabbatical would ideally experience great insight, have mystical experiences, have amazing moments of deep thought of the infinite, and would return to the congregation totally transformed into what every member of the congregation wants in a minister. Well, none of that happened, but I can truthfully tell you I have changed. Starting with, I'm 5 months older. The first 2 months were really tough because this was the first time since childhood that I wasn't working at some occupation. Of course, during my careers, I had vacations of a week or two, but I never experienced being away from occupational accountabilities for more than a week or two. The first 2 months were really tough because I had no pre-assigned purpose. I had no structure, nor any constraints, nor accountability to anyone except myself. It was scary and disorienting. I first filled the time with house chores, which had long been put aside, and that was fine, but after weeks of being busier and busier, I began to see my life more clearly. But that recognition came slowly. But over time, I realized that true transformation does not require exotic travel, nor unusual experiences. Transformation of behavior comes like all of life changes. After the insight, you follow up with small, consistent steps. Change comes from practicing new behavior, either physical or mental behavior. Without the practice, change doesn't last. So how have I changed? Have I changed? I'll let you decide that. But I'll share some insights I gained on sabbatical, which has me practicing some new behaviors. On sabbatical, I did read more than I typically do, and I read a lot of philosophy. I've always been interested in philosophy because it's an activity people pursue to seek to understand a fundamental truth about themselves, about their relationship to the world and to each other, about the way to live. So for me, philosophy is at the core of every religion. And my reading took me to the Stoics, and I read a lot about Stoicism. Stoicism was a philosophical movement from the Hellenistic period, from 300 BCE to 300 CE. And Stoicism declined after the rise of Christianity in the 4th century, but it's had many revivals during the Renaissance and more recently in our lifetime. The Stoics had views on many aspects of life, and my study focused on their views on ethics and how to lead a good, meaningful life. You're going to get more on the Stoics in the weeks to come, but I found that many of their observations are in direct agreement with Unitarian Universalist principles. Have you ever read something that just pierced your soul? Maybe you heard it, maybe you read it, maybe you experienced it, but something just totally touched you. Something so profound, so unnerving, so disturbing, and so thrilling that you stopped. You stopped breathing. You stopped thinking and just sat in the moment. That's what happened to me when I read one basic Stoic thought. And it goes like this. You can only control two things in your life: your thoughts and your actions. Let me explain why such simple words stopped my breathing. During sabbatical, I'd been watching the news. I had been reading numerous news articles. I had immersed myself in worldly events. I was despondent and overwhelmed by our political divisiveness, the rampant rise of misinformation, rising COVID deaths, climate change, and all the other broken parts of our existence. I was becoming dismantled from not knowing what to do when I was so angry and so confused. Stoic thought number one: I cannot control what happens in the world or in other people's minds. I can only control my thoughts. If I think the world's a mess, then that's what it is. That's what it becomes. That's what I become. If I am worried about what other people think of me, then I will be brought down by my failures, which I fabricate with my own thoughts. Epictetus said it this way, Stoic: we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how to respond to them. This is not a moral abandonment of injustices in the world. This is not naivete. This is not denying the brokenness of the world. This is about not taking personal responsibility for the problems beyond our control. This is about not molding my life to please someone else's idea of what I should be. This is about choosing how I react to what happens to me. It's about attitude. It's about perception. It's about being a realist and caring deeply while being unable to fix things that ought to be fixed. Controlling your thoughts, oh, that's easily said, but oh, how difficult to master. It will take me constant practice for the rest of my life, but I'm trying. Stoic thought number 2. Only you can control your actions. So how do you spend your non-renewable resource of your time? The Stoics believe that we have a moral responsibility to lead a good life in helping each other. We are in this finite time of life together, and your actions can make that existence more peaceful and more just, or worse, or even your actions may have no impact at all. You and only you choose how to spend your time. Your actions can bring more love or hate into the world. Or you can spend your time on activities that make no difference to the world. So again, these are not new thoughts, but when I put the two together mid-sabbatical, they resonated with me. They changed me. You can only control 2 things, your thoughts and your actions. And this came to me during a pandemic when my thoughts were wearing me down and I had no idea what to do. They came to me when Christmas time with my family was totally disruptive, when a member tested positive for COVID 2 days before Christmas, after being in close contact with all of us. Christmas was gone. We couldn't see each other. The 2 thoughts became my mystical experience. I realized that I could control how I reacted to missing Christmas with my family. I realized that I could act and be compassionate with my nephew who caught it in a hot tub with 5 other people. I realized that I can care deeply and that I can follow my ministerial calling without being destroyed, or by believing that I was responsible for everything and everybody. I care deeply about you, about the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Santa Cruz County. I care deeply about Unitarian Universalism. I care deeply about the injustices in our world. Yet I don't have to own them and do all the fixing myself. If we align our actions with our principles, we are spending our time wisely. If we work together, if we can change ourselves and we can change the world to a more just place. There's always more to do, but let us not get mired down in a mind muddied with anger or depression. And every obstacle is an opportunity, if we choose to see it. My prayer for all of us, may the scales fall from our eyes, and may we see clearly how we think and how we act, the only 2 things we can control. The only 2 things. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.